Chris will be hosting ESPN's special postseason NFL countdown on Super Bowl Sunday, ESPN's NFL primetime after the game, and an hour-long tribute. Chris Berman, he did go all the way on Thursday, February 2nd. Well, this is quite a swan song here of sorts.
Well, it's not a complete... Hi, Dan. Nice to see you. The glasses look is really doing it for you.
Am I fooling you?
Very, very, very professorial, as you say.
It worked like for Oberman.
Well, then you ought to look into it. We love Keith. He posted some great pictures from my high school senior days. I had a lot of hair. I was very envious. I thank Keith for that. Yeah, well, it's not a swan song per se. Like I said, it's Yogi Berra. I'm leaving, but I'm staying. But this show that's on, fittingly Groundhog's Night, by the way. When else would you have it? I don't know what's in it, and I'll probably be the last to see it because, Super Bowl week I'll look at it in late February and wonder, did you really do all that?
Yeah.
So I think it'll be some yucks. You'll probably relive some of the days yourself if you see it. You'll go, I was there then.
Well, I brought it up when the fact that you stayed to do my first Sports Center, and you called me the Charlotte Observer. You remember this? Because I observed for a couple of months, I think, that I was just there watching you guys do Sports Center, and I got to the point where I go, I think I got it down here. And then they said, all right, you're going to do your first Sports Center. You had just done the 11 o'clock Sports Center, and you said, I'll stay and do the Sports Center with you. And that might have been, I don't know if it was a 1 o'clock or a 2 o'clock, but you were staying late. And I never forgot that. It's one of the kindest gestures that you ever did, and you've done an awful lot. But you stayed, and I got the intimidation out of the way because I did a show with you, survived, and then I moved on from there.
You caught me on a bad day. You observed for that. What did you observe for too much? Because now the ESPN I came to, 3 weeks old, October 1st, 79, was a little different than the ESPN you came to. Although one was just late 80s, Dan? Like
89.
Okay, so you're coming from CNN. You did the show. You knew what you were doing.
Yeah.
So... I'm 24. I've been on TV in Hartford for 3 months. I started, you're going to do the overnight show at 3 a.m. You're going to watch one night. They didn't tell me one night. Watch what this guy does at the 3 a.m. sign-off show. And I came in October 2nd, my second night, and says, well, where's Wayne Hagan? Well, he's not here. You're doing the show. What? So I had a quick, I was the Charlotte glancer.
Did you almost not work at ESPN?
Never come there, you mean?
Yeah.
Way back then?
Yeah.
Well, no. Hartford TV was just the weekend, Saturday, Sunday, $23 Saturday night and $23 Sunday night at the NBC in Hartford.
Killing it.
Minimum wage, pal.
Yeah.
And no, I applied because they were just starting. I said, I don't have a tape to send you. Why don't you watch me?
But you knew nothing about what it was.
I knew it was starting, so I went over there. Not there, but there was some other place like late August or early September to, hey, would you consider me? And then I got a phone call. I was working radio during the week, TV on the weekend, Dan, but again, for nothing. Would you like to do our overnight, our sign-off at the time show? I'm making a combination of maybe 10. And they said, we'll pay you 16. Where do I sign up? 3 a.m., I did that pretty much for 4 years, other than the football. It was okay. But also traffic wasn't bad going home.
I'm wondering if you came along 10 years later.
Good question. With that experience, never would have been hired. I mean, I'd already been on for 3 months, but really...
But also your style.
Okay. Well, interesting question. They would have had to have decided, if we're looking at this, let's say I was on local or Hartford or somewhere TV for a few years doing what I was doing.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to say I was Warner Wolf, but he was certainly upbeat, and that did exist, just not...
Yeah.
Of course, local sports would be 5 minutes. You won't have time to do nicknames of the Seattle Mariners if you're working in Connecticut, They would have had to decide ahead of time if this is for us or not. Me, it was throw him on. I think he can speak in complete sentences, and we'll see how it goes.
But there was no blueprint for what you were doing.
No.
Nationally.
No, and there was no blueprint, Dan, for the show, a half-hour Sports. Walter Cronkite only had a half an hour.
Yeah.
That's real news, if you think about it. So there's no blueprint for any of it. We're in Houston, Mercury astronauts. We went up, circled around, and hoped we came down in the ocean,
At what point did you realize that ESPN was going to make it?
Well, The easy answer would be when we got the NFL contract for 8 Sunday night games. Yeah. They didn't start till the World Series was over, so Halloween-ish. When we got that contract in 87, we were only in existence 8 years by that point. You had a feeling before that, like, we're going somewhere. And cables, remember, you're at CNN. Cable from 1979 to 1989 was a skyrocket, which no one could have really predicted. Anyone that predicted it was lying. Yeah. Okay? But 87, the NFL, like, why would Pete Rozelle, pretty smart guy now, entrust to, quote, cable 8 games, and then the show called NFL Primetime was hatched by Pete Rozelle and then not yet our president, Steve Bornstein, with me in mind. Once we had that, I knew we were on the map to stay.
Did you ever get in trouble for something you said on the air? You ever get brought in? I mean, I'm saying that I did. Think. Keith and I got in brought in a couple of times and threatened with our jobs, but I
never got to that. For some reason, because, you know, I can talk like a sailor if I need to. There's always been a kind of a stop sign. Now, we've all misspoken, and there's funny stories of that. But not to that. I got in trouble a couple times when I showed up from a vacation with a mustache, okay? But that's not, you can shave it and you're good, you know? One time I did it because they had forgotten, this is pre-contract days, to kind of, okay, it's been about 14 months since we've looked at what you're making. How about a little, I can now say this, it's the 80s. I kind of walked in with, well, what do you do? And then by the end of that conversation, well, while I'm in the office, you know, it's been a year. And, oh, okay, well, so that was a good negotiating ploy. But no, not your job. But you had safety in numbers. There were 2 of you. I was kind of solo. Tommy Mees and I never, it was a different deal then, because I mentioned the late Tom Mees, Dan, because I did so many late shows with him. I mean, and 11:30 and 2:30, we would do 10 a week sometimes. Yeah. So, no, not yet, but I still have time to get called in.
No, I think you're good, Chris. We got called in.
I'd love to hear this.
I always maintain that if you go into a room, the more wood paneling in the room, the more trouble you're in. Because there was paneling on the roof. There was lots of Emmys. Like, you knew you were going into a room that you don't normally get to go into. And I just remember that our boss at the time, Bob Eaton, started banging on the desk. And
like Khrushchev.
And I'm thinking, I got 3 little kids at home. I can't lose this gig. And I remember that we were threatened with our jobs, and we walked out, and I'm just mortified. Like, I'm deer in the headlights. And Oberman goes, F him. I go, what?
Well, that would be him.
F him.
That would be my high school chum. Yeah. That would be him.
And it brought us closer together. We didn't care, and we just said we're going to do it our way as long as we can continue to do it. But that was the one moment where sort of...
Interesting.
Because they said, and I've said this before, and I want to tell you this because I never want it to be construed as negative. They said we don't want another Berman because they knew that you had gotten to a status. You had created... You know, you had a brand before brands were popular. They were worried we were going to be seceding from the union. And that's why I say, then they go, we don't want another Berman. And we're thinking, why wouldn't you want another Berman? But that management took us to task.
They shouldn't have been scared of any of it, but that's...
Well, you played nice, though. You were good. You were a great team player.
We have to be an actor every... No, no. Because I mean, look, there were only 70 or whatever the number were of us in 79 and 80, and we really had the mortar and the bricks.
But you stayed there. That's why I'm thrilled that they named the studio after you and Tommy, and I hope they do something for Tommy Mees. I hope that they name the Newsroom. I've been trying to get that behind the scenes where now it's not anymore, but I just want them to acknowledge Tom Mees and you and Bob Lee, because without you guys, everybody wants to work there now, but without you guys, it wouldn't exist.
Well, that's nice of you to say, Dan. It would, but it was a great idea. We happened to be, Bob and Tommy was a couple years older. Bob and I are at the same age within a couple months, so we were 24. And we're completely different people, as you know, but total respect. I mean, Bob Lee, he keeps us honest.
Yes, he does. Yes.
I don't know that the same can be said of me or when you guys were there. I'm playing now, but you're too kind in that. But
Explain this to me, though, Chris.
go ahead.
When I was observing, remember
the Charlotte Observer.
Remember? Yeah, you were like, hey, the Charlotte Observer. And I'd go, yeah.
So you got a nickname before you were on.
I did.
Don't you appreciate what that was? Not everybody can say that.
Okay, but you know in the newsroom there, where you had the wall of monitors.
Yes.
Now explain to me this. There'd be a game and 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 then porn.
Well, I didn't have the
Softcore
clicker.
porn.
I didn't.
You knew who had the clicker? Tim Brando.
See, now well.
Yeah, and I thought, okay.
I can neither confirm nor deny. No, I don't. And it's not like you think it is. Whatever.
It was like a manual or something like that, right, Fritzy? You know that.
That's exactly what they
Jeez.
Yeah.
It was whatever.
It was a little Wild Wild West-like, though.
Well, look, it was still in the age when, hey, look, the Royals game is on tonight. Like, not every team was on, and so it would be a Wednesday night in the late 80s.
Yeah.
And maybe 5 teams had their midweek game on. New York or Boston was always on, but we got the Royals.
We get to see the Padres.
Yeah, the Pods are playing the Giants. It's coming in, and it was still. Really, are we still here? You know, there was still a little sense of wonderment, if that's the right word.
But I don't know if we knew who was watching.
Well, but I'll tell you, as you found out very quickly, and you probably did before you came over to us, that you'd run into people in odd places, especially early in my career. That's when because I did the 2:30, or first 3, but the 2:30 show. And I remember being out on the West Coast, Dan, in early 80s, and you sit down to eat, and the waiter would come over and say, so what does the Swami want to drink? What? What are you talking about? Like, this is early 80s. Like, they're watching out West. So I'd get great letters, and this is long before married, the kids. I mean, from husbands in Iowa, thank goodness you're on, because at 2 a.m. when I'm feeding the baby, I'm watching your show.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, who would get up at 2 o'clock in the morning to feed the baby? Like, what is this? And I'm serious. Back then, you got letters to kind of inform you what was going on. So you never know. My message to everyone coming to our place now, there's somebody watching somewhere that could be big time, could be little time, you're making an impression on. You don't know why or where they are, but they're there.
Paulie, did you get in trouble?
I've always wanted to tell you this, Chris. I actually got put in detention in 8th grade. When you used to do Joaquin, the dog, Andujar, we all loved you. I was in a history class, and I made a joke of the answers. I put Abraham and cheese, Lincoln, and I got detention that day.
Detention?
And I said it was because I watched...
High school or college?
8th grade.
Oh, 8th grade. College, I'm worried about you, but 8th grade, man. Now
I was proud of it.
That's very good. I mean, you could go George Carr Washington. You could do whatever you. I never quite did that when I majored in history at Brown. I didn't quite do that, although we did have nicknames at the time. But thank you for that.
My pleasure.
We're going to look up who that teacher was and re-educate.
Chris will be hosting ESPN Special Postseason NFL Countdown. That'll be at 11 a.m. Eastern, and then NFL Primetime. So the NFL Primetime is...
No, because
okay. I just
the NFL. Well, moving forward, it'll seem like the fall is completely different, because, as you know, you can't say we'll do the football show week 1, 3, 8, 10. That'll fit into my. No. You're either swimming in the deep end or you're not.
Yeah.
But I'm going to do the Super Bowl prime times from the field moving forward. I'm going to do championship game prime time. So
good.
There'll be still some highlights, and I'll be around, just not as prevalent, if that's the right word. I mean, you got glasses on, you know what prevalent.
I can see.
And,
yes, I can see.
And it'll be different in the fall, but honestly, I will say this. Because up until September, not that much is going to change. I'm not doing the draft. It's okay. I'm not doing the home run derby. It's okay. Not that I don't, but that's okay. So, but now September comes, they're going to kick it off. I'm going to remind myself what I was at 20, aspiring to cover pro football and be Brent. At 62, when I'm Sunday Ticket and this, I don't have to relearn why I like it, but I'll watch like the consumer that I was 40 years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm okay. I'm okay there. I'll miss the action. I'll miss being in the middle, but I still love football, and I never soured on my job, but it's okay. 40 years of it. I've carried the ball 35 times a game for 40 years.
I'll see you next year at this time.
If you'd like.
Chris Berman, I don't know if there's an easy way to say, but other than thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome, and thank you. Thanks, Dan.
All right, we'll come back.
The Dan Patrick Show, weekday mornings on Audience.